Chapter 17. Caesar, the Future Revealed. I felt sick to my stomach hearing the way Lucas spoke so coldly and matter-of-factly, not really acknowledging the human being behind the voice. I didn't stop to question why I was being treated like an insider, but I knew that I was. This was familiar territory with my military brat friends. Now I was an instant, temporary member of the Voyage dysfunctional family that I loved, still not understanding my role completely. That was yet to come. I suppose that being deemed humble potential supermodel material made me valuable, like an asset, currency, or a weapon. As I was reeling calmly from this wealth of information, the elevator arrived, and out walked Bindi with my impending doom. They headed in our direction. Anthony clearly had not been told of my presence, because he took one look at me and was instantly pissed off. You could see his temperature rising red in his face when he said, "What's she doing here?" incredulously, with an emphasis on the she. "She's coming with us. She can speak German and translate for us," said Lucas. When I heard him say that, my stomach filled with butterflies, replacing the nausea. They didn't know that my German left a lot to be desired. "Why does she have to?" Anthony trailed off, squeezing his hands open and closed by his sides. "You know what? Fine. Let her come along," he finished abruptly, calming himself. Diana and Sam arrived, obliviously all smiles, mercifully breaking the tension, and we all headed off together on foot uptown, where there were plenty of shops. Lucas took the opportunity to subtly gloat at bringing me along, rubbing it in, goading Anthony, and asking me questions that begged answers. I became a bystander, stuck in the middle, watching the absurdity as the passion play unfolded before my very eyes. Let's be clear, I love rock stars, but they can be real drama queens. Anthony's visible anger let me know that he did care about who I was with and what I did. If he didn't care, he wouldn't have been pissed off about it. So, in an odd sort of way, his behavior was comforting, because he was jealous. The fact that he was pissed off at me and not Lucas spoke volumes. I didn't really want to speak at all, except to explain to Anthony that I never intended to go off with Lucas. Yet the questions kept coming. How did I like living in Germany and so forth? I told them that I was getting used to it and learning to love certain aspects of it, especially the German people. But I missed New Orleans. Lucas would query Anthony, who was just put off by my very presence, about anything I said. He didn't want to seem like a spoiled rock star, so he put up with it, but I could see his body get tight and his jaw tense up as he responded. Just when I thought I couldn't bear another minute of testosterone on parade, we passed a shop, and everyone decided that we should go investigate further. Thank God. As everyone was feeling the unspoken tension, Anthony peered through the window and saw a shirt that he liked. He made a big point of saying that he had to check his wallet to make sure that he had enough money, referring to the previous night. And I, for some reason, almost completely forgetting that he was thoroughly displeased with me, remembered myself and spoke to him like he was a human being. "Hey man, you are living the stuff of dreams," I said. "You're a rock star. Everybody wants to be a rock star and live your life. Why don't you just relax and enjoy it?" Well, you could have heard a pin drop on the street. Even the traffic noise seemed to fade into the distance as everyone waited to hear what came next with bated breath. Anthony, just 2 steps ahead of me, stopped in his tracks. His entire body tightened up again, as though he was going to turn around and give me a tirade. He started a sentence with, "You," and then he stopped himself while looking into his wallet. "There are things you don't understand," he said. "You know what? Never mind." He had thought better about it and stopped talking mid-sentence. Satisfied with the contents of his wallet, he declared, "Let's go in." The group moved tentatively forward, following him into the shop. That was when my services as a translator were called upon. Anthony pulled down a metallic silver shirt from the wall and said to Lucas, "Tell her to ask the clerk if you can put this in the dryer." Well, I was standing right there, so I asked her what I could manage with my best broken German. I really should have paid more attention in Mr. Huber's class. Anthony watched me blush with unabashed glee as I was trying to translate for him. Praise be and glory hallelujah. She said that she could speak English and saved me for the moment. Thank God. In the end, he bought the shirt. We all returned to the hotel, and he went up to his room. The walk back to the hotel was sullen, and I watched him go with a sad relief, wondering when or if the next opportunity would arise to speak with him. As I wondered this, standing in the lobby with the others, Caesar turned a corner and looked at me, a little bit like a lost puppy. He approached, appearing fabulous in a blazer and jeans. Lucas and Bindi decided it was a great day to go back outside, while Diana and Sam went off on their own to do what lovers do. Following a short trip through the revolving doors, Caesar cozied up to me outside and complained, "I'm so very bored." I could feel the wind in my hair and the sun on my skin, persuading me gently to let go and enjoy the day, even without Anthony. I looked sideways at Caesar, feeling the proximity with a grin on the edge of my lips. "Oh my God, a bored rock star! Whatever will we do?" I said, almost singing, teasing him, ever so slightly and obviously. He grinned back at me. He enjoyed being teased about being a rock star. I could see that there was more to him than his jealousy, and not one to throw stones. I took him into my heart all the same. "We're gonna go hang out on the bus, Caesar," said Lucas. "Why don't you come with us, man?" Caesar said no, looking rather glum again, and made a point of telling me that he was going upstairs to hang out all alone. "It's a beautiful day," I said, looking at him smiling. "Come, walk with us, hang out for a while." "No thanks," he said with a half-smile, emphasizing the forlorn expression on his face as he turned to head up to the 22nd floor. I went with Bindi and Lucas to the tour bus, where we all sat down and took a rest, recovering from our labors with Anthony. The guys began speaking about life on the road. Bindi told me that he would be sad to leave my company and go ahead to the next tour stop to set things up there. He was the tour boss, and he had to go early to make sure things were done right. I felt real disappointment about his imminent departure because he gave me a sense of calm and equanimity. We liked each other innately, and we both understood it. I listened to their stories of life on the road with great fascination. It was a life that I might live because I was a singer, so I paid laser-close attention, taking mental notes at every turn. As we sat on the luxury bus, directly in front of the hotel, famous names were thrown around easily without pretension. At some point during the conversation, I mentioned that I was a singer. Bindi and Lucas turned to me with interesting expressions, not believing or disbelieving. I said, "No, I really am a singer. I can sing. I'll prove it. Play Wings of Spring." It was a voyage favorite of mine because it required going up by 3 octaves and holding a note for an unimaginable amount of time, something that I did with unpretentious ease. They played it, and I sang it all the way through, while they listened with rapt attention. I held the last note out, matching the studio version with Bindi watching me exceptionally closely. "And she holds it out to the very end just like a professional." I thought, well, of course I do. I'm not some amateur. I've been singing since I was at least 3 years old. There was a quiet filling the space as Lucas mulled over what he had heard, considering it and measuring his response. Looking at me thoughtfully, he said, "You would do really well as a country singer. You could sing country music." This was not what I wanted to hear. My heart was set on rock and roll. "I don't want to sing country," I said. It wasn't that I didn't appreciate country music. It was that I loved rock and roll. Lucas and Bindi began talking back and forth about the clear bell tone of my voice as it related to genre. They both seemed to think that country was my lot. I got quiet as they each became contemplative, reflecting on what they had just seen and heard. Taking a breath, Lucas said, "You could make it in country music and then cross over into rock, or sing country rock like Linda Ronstadt." Wow, she's amazing, but I'm not her, I thought, undeterred. I thanked him for his opinion and said, I would rather just sing rock and roll. I told you I could sing. I don't tell lies. And you were right. You're the real deal through and through. Nothing fake about you, Bindi said with conviction. I was grateful to even hear a reference to Linda Ronstadt and myself in the same sentence. There was a new dimension of me now revealed that added to my somewhat unicorn-like status as a virgin. Their eyes held respect as they were speaking to me and about me. For me, singing was something that came naturally, like breathing. These two men had seen plenty of singers and musical artists in their line of work. They each had their own opinions about the music industry that ran deep. I seemed to make an impression on them that mystified me. The hours were woven together like a translucent tapestry within time and space, which is how I found myself alone in a room with Caesar. He decided to have lunch with the rest of us in the cafe. Following lunch, we all rode up in the elevator together. When we finally arrived on the 22nd floor, Lucas was drowsy and went down the hall to take a nap, while Diana and Sam slipped away to have some time alone. I was feeling a profound joy at being seen by those around me as an individual and not a child. I reveled in the sense of freedom and expansion that I had not ever felt before, except on the cloud in my dream or on rare occasions with my friends. The way I felt here with this band and crew was to a much lesser extent an encapsulated experience of individuated expression on earth, not in the sky. I felt loved and appreciated for who I was, and my energy felt boundless and open in a way I had not previously known myself to be, even in New Orleans. As Caesar and I walked into the room on the crew floor, the sun was streaming in through the window, making everything sparkle with light, a rarity in Frankfurt. We were talking vehemently about music and the band. He asked me exactly what kind of music I liked to listen to and what my favorite songs and bands were. I told him that I loved Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, and Queen, but I didn't much like punk rock because it was too choppy and lacked cohesion and harmonies. I learned to sing harmony when I was a child, and I loved the overtones that it created in music. It would be a while before I was able to appreciate punk as a true art form. I had been exposed to it and found it far too discordant for my sensory experience. He wanted to know what songs I loved the most and why, maybe because he was told during lunch that I was a good singer. I said that my favorite Led Zepp song was Kashmir. He asked me why, so I told him. I loved the progression of the orchestration interwoven through the hypnotic rhythms, as well as the lyrical story that it told about traveling through time and space to a mystical land where the truth would be revealed to all. He determined that it was the Middle Eastern influences in the musical orchestration that I referred to, but couldn't articulate clearly. I could see that he was very intent on knowing exactly what kind of music I loved and why, so I obliged. I told him how much I loved Voyage, and went into detail about the imagery of the phoenix rising from the ashes on the album cover art. I loved the way that it symbolized rebirth after a long journey, only to be reborn again into a new or parallel life. He listened, enraptured, obviously not ever thinking of it in that way before. He was a prodigy, a lead guitar player aficionado that had always had everything handed to him on a silver platter because he was just that good. The artistic components of imagery and subtlety hadn't really occurred to him as being all that interesting. However, since it was interesting to me, he listened, saying, "It's just art. It doesn't mean all that." He wasn't really in tune with the full artistic expression of the band. He was there to shred on guitar, and he delivered in that capacity without taking into consideration the whole of the artistic message that was being conveyed to the world through the music. Because of his apparent inability to understand or conceive of what was possible through the medium of music, I couldn't help myself, so I told him the way that I perceived it. I began speaking about the way that the music and lyrics weaved a delicate story together. The story carried by the music was profound, and not only that, it was a powerful catalyst for change because it speaks the language of the heart. When I asked him how he felt about being part of that kind of magic, as the guitarist in Voyage, he told me that it was just a gig. I stopped him, saying no, that it was a mission that meant more than that, because it could change lives and potentially the world through the art of inspiration. I said to him in no uncertain terms that Voyage was an extraordinary band and that they were going to be bigger than they had ever dreamed possible. He was incredulous, beyond belief, yet intrigued. "Oh yeah? How big?" I opened my arms up wide and said, "Huge! You don't understand. Voyage is going to be massive, like you've never seen before." He said, "Oh, come on." I replied like an angel, feathers ruffled ever so slightly, unperturbed by his disbelief. "You'll see, and then you'll believe me. It's all in the music. When it all comes together in a kind of synergy, with the harmonies soaring, something amazing happens." He looked at me with intensity and said, "What's in the music? What is the music?" I was on the spot and knew that the situation required that I be completely honest about what I felt. So I reluctantly decided to pursue a deeper level of communication. He was now more fully engaged in the authentic meaning of the conversation, ignited by my captivating and contagious passion for music. I diverted my eyes to the ground, contemplating internally, drowning in shyness. It was written in my soul. The real truth was love, so I stated it as plainly as that. "Love," I said softly and sweetly, peering up from the respite of the floor. "Love is in the music, and the music is the love. It's all about the love." I found it difficult to express my unspoken thoughts and feelings so openly in the context of the conversation. It was so much easier to pour it all out on paper to a receptive blank page, not to a love-struck rock star trying to figure me out. You would have thought that I had dropped some kind of love bomb and it exploded. This was a foreign concept for Caesar. His face softened visibly, and the clouds parted as if on cue. The sun poured into the room again from the Frankfurt sky above, and we both smiled, unguarded in our moment of connection. His eyes met mine, and the light danced in them, playing between us. I knew that I loved him in the same way that I love those dear to me, even if I didn't agree with how he felt about Anthony. I also knew that to be with him in the way that he desired would be certain death and a road not to be traveled. In that moment, our eyes explored each other's hidden places, and he asked me about my cross. I spoke quietly, saying, "I made a deal with God," as I looked down and held it briefly between my fingers. Then I said, as though he were a child, "See, there's a light in your eyes. You have a light. I can see it. I see you in there. You can't hide from me." I touched his shoulder, watching his facade fall away, and he smiled, glowing in the same way that he did on the night we met after the show. He was lit up like a Christmas tree, even though he didn't know what to make of me or my thoughts. I had a code that I followed, inspired by my heart and faith in my Creator, symbolized by the tiny gold cross that hung around my neck. He said, sounding baffled, "I've never met anyone like you." He may have heard similar philosophies. Not that he would have listened to them, because he would have been too busy complaining of sheer boredom. But he had never met anyone who so thoroughly and nearly consciously embodied the true meaning of love by believing in it so fiercely. Living up to my name was a work in progress. However, it was my name, so I had to do it justice. I was a wake-up call, a rallying cry for the freedom of soul expression that demanded we open our eyes and really see the love that we can all be together. I had been accused of being a flower child by my friends on more than one occasion. I dove into the cosmic pool of love again because it was there that I belonged. I understood the potential held inside the human heart and the simple truth that when people are unified in the vibration of love, miracles happen. We both felt the fire sharing these moments together in a blaze of illuminating deliverance from the mundane world below. It was my joy to witness his soul stirring within him, each of us swimming in the magical waters of sweet liberation together. The connection was so strong that I knew I needed to make a quick exit or risk getting lost there. "I'm gonna go see what Diana is up to," I said, knowing that to linger here alone with him was the wrong choice. He asked me to stay, and I told him that I was supposed to go do something with Lucas and the others in a little while, so I was going to go have a smoke. With Lucas sleeping, it was a perfect opportunity to go out, unhindered, explore, and perhaps find Anthony. I decided not to ask Caesar for the band's floor number, because all the band members were housed on a higher floor for their privacy and protection. Caesar kept coming down to the cruise floor, proclaiming his boredom to me, and this was no different. He said, "Don't leave. I'm just so bored." I smiled and sashayed out of the room, saying, "I'll be back. Try not to be too bored. I'll see you later."